Welcome to Arkansas Wildlife. It's all about waterfowl this week on Arkansas Wildlife. A little bit of waterfowl hunting and some waterfowl habitat. Here in Arkansas, one of the most important pieces of habitat is flooded green timber. Arkansas is known around the world for its green timber duck hunting. In order to continue that legacy, we're making some changes to the way we manage greentree reservoirs on our wildlife management areas. A little later in the show, we're headed over to the Grand Prairie to do some specklebelly goose hunting. It's the new bird in town, and we're going out once again with our old pal, Steele Jessup, to try to get a limit of specklebelly geese. But first, we're headed to the Great White North. That's right, Canada, Saskatchewan to be exact. We're going to see what Ducks Unlimited is doing with contributions from us here in Arkansas to improve breeding and nesting habitat on the Canadian prairies. All that and this week's winner of a free hunting and fishing license right after this break. Arkansas Wildlife is brought to you in part by Academy Sports and Outdoors. For all, for less. There's a reason Arkansas is known far and wide for its superb duck hunting. Thanks to its position at the neck of the migratory funnel, the natural state serves as the winter home to millions of ducks and geese. But circumstances on the other end of the flyway have an even bigger influence on duck populations and Arkansas duck hunting.
Frankly, if you look at band return information, if you look where the ducks come from, ducks harvested in Arkansas are banded in Saskatchewan in a big way. There's some more from other prairie provinces, but really Saskatchewan is the core of Arkansas's waterfowl.
Prairie Canada produces millions of ducks each year, which is the reason the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission has contributed funds for the past 50 years to conserve important waterfowl habitats here in Saskatchewan.
The North American Waterfowl Management Plan is a critical plan that started in the mid-1980s. This plan was really about Canada, the US, and Mexico all coming together to make sure that the future of waterfowl was protected.
An aerial view of the Allen-Dana Hills of central Saskatchewan reveals the area's value to ducks. Thousands of small potholes mark the landscape. These shallow ponds, gouged by glaciers, provide habitat for breeding pairs as well as habitat for hens to raise broods until they're strong enough to migrate thousands of miles. But ducks also need nesting cover that's relatively close to the potholes. Native prairie grasslands provide the best habitat.
It's an absolutely critical area. You've got this area that's got extremely high wetland densities like those in behind me here, and talk about a place for waterfowl to be produced. This is such a broad landscape of wetlands that we need the grasslands. We need the acres of habitat to give a duck a chance. Every duck nest has about an 85% chance of failing.
Ducks face many challenges to survival, and not all of them come from the natural world. During a June trip to Saskatchewan, representatives from the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission saw firsthand how changing land use practices are diminishing habitat. From an elevation of several hundred feet, you get a clear indication of how wetland drainage and the conversion of native grassland to cropland are changing the landscape. Driving a tractor or combine around a pothole in the middle of a crop field isn't always efficient or convenient, which leads some farmers to drain wetlands. Others are breaking native prairie to increase crop production.
Wetland drainage is something that's real in this province. We don't have wetland policy that really protects wetlands. So what we have is we have landowners that are out there and trying to make another dollar on their farm, and you can't blame them for that. But they drain the wetlands, which loses the productivity of the landscape for waterfowl. The other factors on the landscape are really the grasslands. For years, this land was converted from grassland into agricultural annual cropping. What we're trying to do now is reverse some of that trend, primarily in the high waterfowl wetland density areas.
Ducks Unlimited Canada protects waterfowl habitat in many ways, including conservation easements, land purchases, and landowner incentive programs.
We put more grass on the ground. We put the right types of habitat on the ground. We work with landowners. and make a landscape change that really results in sustainable habitats for waterfowl up here in Saskatchewan.
Kyle Buckle is a fourth-generation farmer in Bruno, Saskatchewan. He works frequently with DU Canada to conserve wildlife habitat while also boosting income on his 5,500-acre farm.
When we were young and ambitious, Dad's like, well, break it, eh? So we broke it all, and now this is all that's remaining is this one narrow piece, eh? But otherwise it would have been all like this, eh? But that was before Ducks was paying the money they are now.
We want to provide incentives. We want to work on ecological goods and services for landowners. That's really looking at what's that value to the public that wetland provides. That's really what we need to do in order to get wetlands back.
Conserving waterfowl habitat requires money, and because ducks don't know international boundaries, ensuring the future of duck hunting on the wintering grounds requires a flow of money from the U.S. to Canada. Working with North American Wetlands Conservation Act, or NAWCA grants, Arkansas and other states contribute funds to conserve Canadian habitats that produce ducks that end up on our end of the flyway. With federal and private matching funds on both sides of the border, Arkansas's investment grows exponentially.
The state dollar gets matched by a Ducks Unlimited dollar, and then those get matched by NAWCA. And then it comes to Canada, and Canadian partners match it, like DU Canada, Environment Canada, and others. It's this leveraging that really results in conservation on a large scale. Those dollars are so critical to making that difference and leveraging and causing the future of waterfowl conservation being secured in the Prairie of Canada.
The natural state is known far and wide for its superb duck hunting, but it's the abundance of flooded green timber hunting that sets Arkansas apart from other popular duck hunting destinations.
I've heard people refer to timber hunting in all sorts of different woods that aren't really anything like the true timber hunting in Arkansas. You just don't have these large blocks of public land like we have in Arkansas that are accessible to pretty much anyone. They're just a remarkable resource. It is something completely unique. It's not available on this scale really anywhere else in the world.
Arkansas boasted more than 5 million acres of bottomland hardwood forests prior to European settlement. And while maybe 20% of that is all that remains, the natural state is far better off than many of its Mississippi River Delta neighbors. The construction of greentree reservoirs has also helped to preserve the state's green timber hunting legacy. GTRs, as they're commonly known, allow land managers to artificially replicate the seasonal flooding patterns of traditional bottomland hardwood forests. They provide critical habitat for migrating waterfowl and hunting opportunities for the state's duck hunters.
Greentree reservoirs are actually a very important part of what's left of the bottomland hardwood forest that was historically widespread in Arkansas all the way across the eastern part of the state.
Arkansas is famous for its wealth of public green timber hunting at places such as Biomeda and Black River wildlife management areas. But if the state's reputation as a mecca for green timber duck hunting is going to persist, water management on public greentree reservoirs must change. The artificial flooding regime that has been in place for decades has had negative effects on forest health.
The trees that live in those areas are trees that tolerate some flooding during the course of the year, mainly dormant season flooding, but not growing season flooding. Greentree reservoirs, of course, have been managed for waterfowl hunting primarily, at least in recent years. So the timing of the flooding, in many cases in the past, was geared more towards the timing of duck seasons as opposed to the timing of when the natural flooding would have occurred in those bottomland forests.
Over a lot of years, we've learned that what we call dormant season flooding maybe isn't, our understanding of that maybe isn't perfect, and maybe some of the flooding timing's been off quite a bit for quite a few years.
A growing body of scientific research over the past 2 decades has taught land managers and wildlife biologists that long-standing artificial flooding practices have caused trees to get sick, and in some cases, to die. We've also learned that oak species that are most beneficial to ducks and other wildlife are being replaced by more water-tolerant species such as green ash, elm, and overcup oak that have far fewer wildlife benefits.
There's no red oak regeneration happening within a 1/10 of an acre. Everything that's in here is elm and overcoat, which are more aquatic species.
You go out duck hunting and you just think a tree is a tree. Maybe we know the difference between cypress and some oaks, but within the oak trees, there's huge differences in the value to ducks. And mainly it boils down to the acorn being small enough that a duck can actually get it in its mouth.
When artificial flooding comes too early, stays too long, or rises too high, the signs of diminishing forest health slowly appear over time.
One of the consequences, certainly unintentional, is that the trees have been exposed to this kind of unnatural way that they have flooded in terms of the timing, the depth, the duration, the same thing year after year. When the trees get stressed, probably just like if you and I got sick, we start to see symptoms that indicate that the tree is not as healthy as it was.
This big nut-all oak that's leaning because its root mass is dying.
The Arkansas Game and Fish Commission will alter water management on its greentree reservoirs to try to mimic what happens naturally.
No rocket science here, but rather just trying to emulate or to replicate, if you will, what Mother Nature would have done naturally anyway. First off, make sure that we don't have prolonged flooding in the growing season, either in the fall or in the spring. Secondly, to try and replicate the things that occur across years so that we don't do exactly the same thing year after year, because that's not how Mother Nature did it.
Today's duck hunters may have to make some short-term sacrifices, but the long-term benefits make it worthwhile.
I'm an active duck hunter. Probably a lot of the people that are interested in this are active duck hunters. Everything that we're doing is not in any way to jeopardize that legacy of hunting. And we want to make it better, and we want to make it sustainable. And for sure, we want to make sure that we do it in a way that not just you and I can enjoy, but our children, our grandchildren, and for generations to come. That's what we've been entrusted with. We've been fortunate enough to be able to manage these spots, to do it in a way that's sustainable, and that's what we need to be doing going forward.
We're headed out today with Steele Jessup, a guy who has guided us multiple times in the past on this show for white-fronted geese, or as we know them around here, specklebellies. We've done this hunt in a lot of different ways over the past few years. A lot of times we hunt in the afternoon, so it's bright, you can see what you're doing. This year we hunted in the morning, so we got out there before sunrise. You got to get your blinds set up. We use layout blinds, so we lay them in, and then we go grab bundles of brush, natural vegetation off this levee on this field, and then kind of put that in place. And so really the area has to look like it did before you got there. These are big flocks of geese, a lot of eyeballs to see that something isn't quite right down there, so you really have to blend in with your surroundings. You want the decoys to look like natural birds, the way they'd be sitting in the field. So a lot of times he's using binoculars and just scouting the day before to see sort of what part of the field the birds are in. So we're gonna place the decoys in the same area where the live birds were, say, the day before. And depending on wind direction and whatever, you kind of have, almost try to create a little pocket and a landing zone where the birds will try to come in right there in front of where your layout blinds are set up. We're hunting today around Lodge's Corner, and that area has really become a hotbed for both snow goose and white-fronted goose hunting. Hunting out of layout blinds is not the easiest thing in the world. It's not hard, but it takes a little getting used to. Because you have so much brush around you, you really can't see except for maybe a little crack right there in front of you.
So you're really relying on your guide, in this case Steele, to watch the birds. If everybody's head's sticking up and moving around, that's just more movement for the birds to see. So Steele is, you know, quite accustomed to kind of staying hidden, but he's the one that's basically your eyes and ears, and when it's time, he's gonna call the shot. So you're really gonna stay down on the ready, and he'll say, okay, it's about to happen. Get ready, guys, they're gonna be out front, and then when it's time, take them, and you just bust up out of there and start shooting.
Get it, get it, get it, get it.
How's that, Scotty?
We do this hunt every year, and the reason why is it's just a really fun hunt. It's a little bit easier than duck hunting. You're not over water. It's a great location to hunt with Steele. He does a great job of scouting them out for us. This year was a pretty good setup. I was off to the side, off to the right of him, probably 20 yards or so. I had a ghillie suit on, up in the brush, really hidden. So I was able to like get the camera right. I was able to get on these birds quick and get some really good footage of them while they were flying in.
When you're hunting specklebellies, the limit is just 3 birds, and that's relatively new. Until a couple of years ago, it was just 2 birds. So if they're flying and they're working your spread, the conditions are right, you can finish in a hurry. Woo, that's the way you do it. One nice thing this morning, one of the first groups that came in, the specklebellies didn't really finish right, but we had a couple of cacklers, migratory Canada geese, that just wheeled right in and landed in the decoy. So that gave us a couple of additional birds to shoot.
Bonus bird.
Bonus! Goose seasons are concurrent. Canada geese, snow geese, blue and Ross's geese, and specklebelly geese. A lot of the times they're all open, you know, at the same time. So when you get an opportunity to maybe take a snow goose or a Canada goose, that's just a bonus. So it allows you to shoot more than just your 3 specklebelly geese. It didn't take long for me to get my limit. Scotty, we got 4 more. You want to tag in? So then we sort of tagged out, and I let Scotty Wyatt, who started out on the camera, move over into my spot in the blind, and I moved over into his spot in the ghillie suit in the bushes running the camera.
They were stacking them up pretty quick, and before too long, it was my turn to set the camera down and pick up my gun and give it a try, and I believe I was shooting better with the camera than the gun.
Get one? I don't think so.
Yelling.
Oh! Gun jam! Did everybody jam? Yeah.
But after a couple misses, I was able to get back in the swing of things and was able to fill my bag for the day.
Hunting specklebelly geese in the Arkansas Delta is just so much fun. It's just something else. You know, I grew up duck hunting, and I always have loved and will love duck hunting. This is just another type of waterfowl hunting. The birds work like ducks. You don't have the flocks of thousands and thousands of birds like you do with snow geese, so it's a little easier to get their attention and get them to work. It's a lot more like duck hunting than, say, snow goose hunting is. But man, when those birds are working right and things come together, you know, it didn't take us but a couple of hours to get our limits, and if we weren't shooting video, we probably would have been done even a lot earlier. But it all came together. Steele Jessup is a great guide. We were in a great location on the Grand Prairie, south of Stuttgart. Just a lot of fun, and it's something that I hope we get to continue to do a lot more here in the natural state.
Arkansas Wildlife presents the Watch and Win giveaway. During each episode of Arkansas Wildlife, we'll give away an Arkansas resident hunting and fishing license, a $35.50 value provided by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Visit the Arkansas Wildlife webpage at arkansaswildlife.com and click on the Watch and Win icon to enter. This week's winner is Rick Schweed from Ullum. Congratulations and thanks for watching.